are just about set for football here in Houston, Texas. The Saints and the Texans. Let's check in with Laura Oakman, who's standing by with Sean Payton.
Thank you, Tom. Sean, we all know you're coming off one of the most challenging years of your life. How are you different today as a coach and as a man?
Well, I think, look, anytime we're teachers, and that's what we are, you learn from experiences. Certainly, I'm no different, and there are a lot of things coming into this season that are different. Part of me is more cynical. You certainly appreciate the relationships that you have with your other players and coaches. That's the one area that that really miss a lot.
Along with your outlook, you changed your defense. Tell me what you want to see out of your guys so the defense matches the swagger of your offense.
Well, we've had a good camp. We've got a lot of competition still. I think this game, most importantly, is for a number of roster spots. So having a chance to see these guys on defense, but also seeing them in the kicking game as we make these final decisions.
Great to see you. Good luck this season,
Thanks,
Sean.
Laura.
Thank you. Tom, up to you.
Boy, thank you, Sean. Thank you. Only 3 head coaches have been with their teams longer than Sean Payton and Gary Kubiak. Both hired in 2006. Those 3 coaches longer tenured with their teams. Bill Belichick, Marvin Lewis in Cincinnati, and Tom Coughlin with the New York Giants. Both these guys have done a tremendous job.
And both at their heart and core is they are teachers. When you talk to them, the very first thing they'll bring up is their abilities to teach and the coaches they've brought into their staffs and them as teachers as well.
Texans have won the toss, elected to receive. We figure to see Matt Shaw for an entire half and maybe even into the 3rd quarter. We're going to wait and see about Drew Brees. Thomas Morstead to kick it away. DJ Kareem waiting back. And 7 yards into his own end zone, crossing the 15 and dropped at the 21-yard line. And Schaub, a Pro Bowler for the 2nd time a season ago. You may remember he won the Pro Bowl MVP in 2010. 13 of 16 so far in this preseason. 22 touchdowns, 12 interceptions a year ago. Back-to-back years, these Texans have won the AFC South, and in back-to-back years, their season came to an end in the 2nd round of the playoffs at the hands of the New England Patriots. No Arian Foster here today. Play action. They fake the handoff to Tate. And Schaub connects immediately to his reliable tight end, Owen Daniels. And that's up to the 29-yard line.
Well, offensively, on the backside, Pro Bowler Dwayne Brown's going to take care of Matt Schaub's backside. Ben Tate, we're going to see a lot of. Arian Foster not playing, as you mentioned. And, of course, one of the go-to receivers in this league, Andre Johnson.
Gain of 8 on 1st down, 2nd down and 2. Not starting up front is Wade Smith, their Pro Bowl left guard. Schaub to throw it again. Wide open is Andre Johnson, and he's across midfield to the 48-yard line.
This is just a simple in route on the outside. You're going to see him come in here. Matt Schaub having all the time he needs with a 4-man rush. They bring him right in behind in the middle of the seam. That's about as simple a pass as you can make in this league with under no pressure whatsoever.
22-yard gain. What a spectacular season in 2012 it was for Andre Johnson. Hard to believe he's now 32 years old. 112 catches a season ago for nearly 1,600 yards. Schaub under pressure, throws it away. It's Cameron Jordan who is giving chase to Schaub, and of course he had a breakout year a season ago, Brian, when he had 8 sacks.
He's obviously the number 1 guy in terms of their pass rush. Curtis Lofton and David Hawthorne in the inside. Hawthorne for the injured Jonathan Vilma, and rookie safety Kenny Vaccaro, the number 1 draft pick of the New Orleans Saints. They are excited about this guy. You can see their eyes light up when they talk about his play.
Start Gene in motion. They give it to Tate. And that'll be a gain of 2. This is a very important season for Ben Tate. Now, obviously, Arian Foster is the man. But 2 years ago, Ben Tate, as his backup, rushed for nearly 1,000 yards. He had a hamstring injury among many injuries last year. Spent a lot of time hurt, carrying for short of 300 yards. They hope to have Foster, who's battled through a calf injury going to the offseason, now more recently a back injury, ready for the season opener. Third down and 8, 4-man rush, and batted at the line of scrimmage. The Texans will punt.
Well, Matt Schaub had to kind of wait this thing out, and it got batted late. Otherwise, because he had a wide open tight end sitting at the first down marker.
Boris Cadet stands back at his own 10-yard line. First time in a preseason. Their new punter Shane Leckler has punted in a game, and this is what this guy does. If there's anybody better in the NFL, go find him than Shane Leckler. 7-time Pro Bowler. We are in Houston, Texas. The Saints and the Texans. Drew Brees and company get it when return.
Today's game on Fox is sponsored by the 2013 Ford F-150 with EcoBoost.
First possession for Drew Brees, who enjoyed another record-breaking season in 2012 en route to his 7th Pro Bowl, 6th as a Saint. This drive begins from the 2-yard line. Pierre Thomas, baby, back to the line of scrimmage. Brees led the NFL in passing yards. 3rd time in his career he's eclipsed 5,000 yards in a season. Led the league in touchdown passes. And of course broke Johnny Unitas' record of throwing a TD pass 54 consecutive games. Figure to see a lot more of Pierre Thomas today, who's played less than a handful of games thus far in the first 2 preseason games. Back-to-back carries for Thomas. This one up across the 5 to the 6-yard line. A little bit of breathing room. Going up a 3rd down and 6 for the Saints.
Well, offensively for the Saints, you know, they were with a new starting left tackle in Charles Brown for the departed Jermon Bushrod. You talked about Pierre Thomas. They want to get a good look at him today. And Jimmy Graham, the all-world tight end, still maturing as a football player. Outstanding athlete, but you forget how little football this guy has actually played so far.
Certainly Charles Brown, many eyes will be zeroed in on him the early part of this season. Protecting the blind side of Drew Brees, and he just does get it away, and it's incomplete. Heavy pressure from the rookie free agent out of Stephen F. Austin, Willie Jefferson.
They brought him on the backside, but in his face, Swearinger got Drew Brees to pull this thing down. He's as responsible for that pressure as the backside. Drew Brees, this is what Drew Brees does so well. He's got such great feet, not only in the pocket, but outside of the pocket. That is a little big play, avoiding a sack and a safety in the end zone.
Well, now Morstead will put a foot on it. Keyshawn Martin, former Michigan State Spartan, very good in the return game. Flag down, and Martin on his feet inside the 30, back to the middle of the field. Crosses the 20 on his way to the end zone. There is a penalty flag down. We wait on the penalty as Martin brings it all the way back for what would be a 60-yard punt return for a touchdown.
And that was very exciting, but it's coming back. I think we got a block in the back on one of the gunners. But you know what? In a preseason game as a coach, yeah, I want the score, but that's pretty good. Okay, we still executed the punt return. We got a lot out of that
block in the back, number 26, receiving team. 10-yard penalty, first down, timeout.
Penalty on Brandon Harris. He's telling the coaches no way. Telling Ed Reed no way.
Ed Reed saying, I'll tell you what you do, son. Hold your hands up in the air and plead innocence.
Today's game on Fox is sponsored by Bud Light. It's the sure sign of a good time. Here we go.
Brian Billick, back in your days as a head man of the Baltimore Ravens, you coached Ed Reed, and they're waiting on him to get back after leaving the Ravens during the offseason.
Ed will be back. He'll be there for the opener, I promise you, and he'll be ready to go. Now, the guys around him understanding how Ed plays, that's something different, but he'll be there on the opener.
Schaub hit on 2 out of 4 on the opening drive for 30 yards. Hit on his first 2, missed on his last 2. Tate fumbles the ball and is able to get back on it. Gain of maybe a yard or 2.
Oh, we got to go back to the punt. You're going to see very quickly right here. Harris, I mean, at what point do you say, son, what don't you understand about pushing a guy from behind? If you can read the name, you're wrong. And Ed Reed's going to come over and try to tell him, look, all you need to do is stand there, throw your hands up the air and position it. You say that I coached Ed Reed. I'm not sure. He didn't coach me a whole lot more in the 8 years I was with Ed, one of the smartest players I've ever been around.
Tate back-to-back carries. Good running room here across midfield. Inside the 30-yard line for Ben Tate. And Ben Jones, the left guard, leading the way, a gain of 39 yards.
Yeah, Brian De La Puente does a great, excuse me, I think it was Grubbs that pulled out in front and just leads. Anytime you can run this zone package, this zone running scheme of the Houston Texans and get a big guard out in front of that, I tell you what, that's a lethal combination.
Well, the ball to 28-yard line, first down for the Texans. Scoreless game under 10 minutes to play in the opening quarter. And to the 20 is Garrett Graham, the backup to Owen Daniels, who caught 28 passes a season ago.
And this is what Houston does. They're such a dynamic running team. We've already seen in the handful of passes that they've thrown, most of them come off play action because you've got to respect the running game of the Houston Texans. It's a hybrid of the Mike Shanahan Denver offense, obviously Gary Kubiak, all those years in Denver, but they're pretty good on their own right.
DJ Kareem, who has been their leading ball carrier thus far during this preseason. Former high school teammate in Oklahoma City with Sam Bradford was Kareem. Trying to make this team.
You know, we talk about this zone running scheme of the Houston Texans, and it was real simple. You pound on the edges, you pound on the edges, and then when teams say, forget it, we're going to fly to the point of attack, that's when you see the back cut back across the game into the gap where these huge holes exist because the defense is over pursued.
First down at the 18, short drop. And that's once again Graham to the 10-yard line. That'll be a gain of 8, second down, 2.
Well, we were at practice the other day watching the 2 tight end offense, and they're primarily a 2 tight end offensive team. They are in Houston. They're excited about these young tight ends. Garrett Graham is a guy they talked a great deal about, and the rookie Ryan Griffin. If they can augment that, they lost James Casey in the offseason, but to go with Owen Daniels, they love being the 2 tight end alignment.
They've always had an outstanding fullback, whether it's Casey, Lawrence Vickers, Vontae Leach. Inside the 5, spinning down to the 3 is Tate. I think a lot of people, it's easy to forget about Tate because you have Arian Foster, but this guy is a rock-solid back.
And this is what I'm talking about. He just rolls into the play side gap, and there he sees that little bit of air coming to the backside, that little bit of daylight, and he pulls the trigger. The reason you don't see much of Tate, Arian Foster had better than 350 carries last year. There's only a handful of guys that have done that in a given year, and the number is diminishing. I think you'll see more this year because I don't know that they want to put that kind of load on Foster this year.
Tate trying to plow his way to the goal line, comes up just short. Ball came out, already blown dead. David Hawthorne there on the tackle. Hawthorne in his second year with the Saints, and Coach here hoping that he'll play like he did in Seattle rather than an injury-plagued year last year.
No, and it makes all the difference here. You can just see they do a nice job. Hawthorne filling in over the top, and now how many bodies can we get on Tate to keep him out of? This is just a scrum. This is just a rugby scrum. We need all the bodies we can get. on tape to keep him out of the end zone. That's exactly what they did.
8th play of the drive. They're going to throw it. And it is a sliding drop. Ball that should have been caught, it looked like, by Owen Daniels. 3rd and goal from outside the 1.
Well, you run the ball, then you come back with a little play action fake. Owen Daniels was clearly open. A little bit of an underthrow here. You can see he had to come back for it, but Owen Daniels is a good enough receiver. Oh, no, I'm wrong. That's as good as you can get. He let it just back a little bit to avoid hitting the linebacker in the head. That's a catchable ball, but Owen Daniels 9 times out of 10 will make the catch.
Run it 3rd and goal, and Tate will find the end zone, a touchdown. Greg Jones is fullback leading the way, and a very impressive drive for the Texans.
Yeah, that's an attitude play there, particularly for a team that wants to run the ball as much as the Houston Texans do. Rob Ryan, obviously the biggest concern for any defensive coordinator is a team that's able to run the ball on you right down the field, and there's nothing you can do about it.
So now Randy Bullock, who missed all of last season on injured reserve, but he is their main man this year, replacing Shane Graham, and the point after is good. Tate off to a big start, 53 rushing yards. One of those runs on the drive for 39. 7-0 Houston in front.
Today's game on Fox is sponsored by the Samsung Galaxy S4. The next big thing is here. And by Pizza Hut. Make it great.
Now that house is not made out of beer cans. It's just decorated with them. Ripley's, believe it or not, estimated over 50,000 cans adorn that monument to recycling right here in Houston, Texas. 7-0 Texans in front. And stepping out of the end zone, Cadet. Second series for Drew Brees and company. Down an early touchdown. .5:51 to play in the opening quarter from Houston, Texas. And the Texans in front 7-0. 2 weeks away from the NFL season opener. Short drop. Crossing pattern. And that's Nick Toon, who missed all of his rookie year with a foot injury.
Tom, you talk about Drew Brees being one of the great quarterbacks in this league. The thing that jumps out at me about Drew Brees, he is so disciplined in his preparation. He's methodical. He's consistent. Young quarterbacks in this league who take a page out of a Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning in just their pregame warm-up. It is the same every week. It's very disciplined, and it has a very specific purpose.
Drop it off to the backup tight end. His first season as a Saint. That's Benjamin Watson. Well, he could turn out to be an outstanding pickup, playing behind Jimmy Graham, coming off a solid year with Cleveland where he had 49 receptions.
Yeah, you look at the Houston defense. Brian Cushing, we talked about returning. Brooks Reed, they're hoping for pressure on the outside. Whitney Merciless not playing today. Jonathan Joseph in the Pro Bowl. And DJ Swearingen, they also have a safety on their side of the field they're excited about.
Pierre Thomas across midfield. It's a gain of close to 7.
Brian Cushing, again, the numbers and the difference in this defense without a Brian Cushing is striking, Tom.
Well, it's amazing. In 2011, when he played every game, the Texans were second in total defense, third in points allowed per game. They went to 16th and 20th in those two categories when he missed the final 11 games last year after injuring the knee on a Monday night against the Jets. Brees is slammed to the turf by Earl Mitchell. And not only the points per game, where they ranked in total defense, but really at the end of the day, Brian, there's only one stat that matters, and look at the wins and losses with him and without him.
And he was that anchor. He was that leader. You can't minimize the impact of that true leader on your defense or your offense when they're not there. It goes beyond just the physical productivity you get from them.
3rd down and 4. Down goes Breeze. Jared Crick, 4th round pick a season ago out of Nebraska.
And you're just going to see that inside pressure. Now, they've already pulled Jari Evans on the inside. And this is that inside pressure that a quarterback truly hates. All of them do. And even more so at Drew Brees. Why? Because of that size. It's very hard when you get that inside pressure and you take away those passing lanes from a Drew Brees.
Martin falls for the fair catch and handles it perfectly at the 14-yard line. Sluggish start for the Saints on offense and defense, trailing 7-0. Both sides of the ball controlled thus far by the Houston Texans in a 7-0 lead. Empty backfield, short drop. And on a crossing pattern, it's Andre Johnson. And that's a gain of close to 7, wrapped up by Jabari Greer.
Tom, this is in your wheelhouse now. This Wednesday, UFC Fight Night on Fox Sports 1 brings you the welterweight bout featuring the rematch you've been waiting for between Carlos Condit and Martin Kampmann. Plus a match between Donald Cerrone, okay, I got it, and Rafael dos Anjos.
Wow.
How about that? Live from Indianapolis, Condit and Kampmann 2 this Wednesday starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, only on Fox Sports 1.
How about that?
Rafael.
Of course, we're off and running now on Fox Sports 1, and we're thrilled about it. Ben Tate going to get a lot of carries here today. Remember, when Tate was hurt most of last year, it was Justin Dorsett who got the playing time in his absence. Arian Foster, if you can include all of his carries in the postseason, Brian, he was up over 400 carries a year ago.
And he's ready to go. We saw him in practice the other day. He was taking all the reps on the prep team. He's, you don't want a lot of hits on Arian Foster. The fact that he's not shown up in the preseason, no big deal.
On the end around, it's Martin. And that did not fool Rob Ryan's defense. That's Will Smith, the longest tenured Saint in his 10th season, a former #1 pick out of Ohio State.
And he's kind of been through it all. The pressure package, turnover inclination of a Greg Williams to the more passive 4-man front of a Steve Spagnuolo last year. Now he's got to adjust to a whole nother scheme with Rob Ryan's 34 base defense. They're asking a lot of this guy. He's gotten up in weight. He's gone down in weight. They've changed what they've asked this guy to do, and he's responded at every turn.
I want to ask you, though, Brian, as a coach, a lot of fans out there, we hear about the 4-3, the 3-4. There's a first down catch by Johnson, and he's across the 45. They'll move the chains. But what is the significant difference of going from a 4-3 to a 3-4?
I think people overdo it in talking about it. Because we're such a 3-wides league right now, even the most ardent of 3-4 teams, between reducing your front strong and weak, which means you take the end and you bring them down over the guard, a true 3-4 defense is in that configuration maybe 20% of the time. So the difference between a 4-man line and a 34 front, not as big as some people make it out to be.
Wide open across the middle, the tight end Owen Daniels. And he's dropped to the 33-yard line. That's another Texans first down.
This is a staple of the Houston Texans, a play fake with Owen Daniels crossing the field, getting the safety out of position with the play fake, getting the linebackers to step up. This is at the heart of where Owen Daniels has been so productive. Last year he had 62 receptions for 716 yards.
Hey, the Texans might want to support the Wisconsin Badger Alumni Club, because they've gotten some pretty doggone good football players out of Wisconsin. That went down to the 22. J.J. Watt, of course, from Wisconsin. Owen Daniels began his career for the Badgers as a quarterback before going to the tight end position.
And they just run a ghost reverse over the top that freezes the linebackers a little bit, and now it's just straight downhill. Very physical running style by Ben Tate. Arian Foster, obviously a great back, but Tate is a nice changeup because of his physicality in the way that he approaches the game.
Well, the seconds wind down on the opening quarter here in Houston. 7-0 Texans. Our Fox NFL preseason special continues after this from your local Fox station. Well, if you're Gary Kubiak and company, you got to feel really good about the way things are going so far, at least for this opening quarter.
Well, this is what you want in the first half of your third game. If you can come out of that feeling good about yourself, getting the snaps you're looking for out of your starting group, because these guys aren't going to see the field next week. That makes a whole bunch of difference going into their opener against San Diego than by not playing well, and now you got to carry that in the back of your mind.
Drive started from their own 15, 6 plays, 63 yards all day to throw for Shaw. From behind Daniels, and he took a lick from Roman Harper.
And that is one that Owen Daniels got to come back and tell his quarterback, hey, man, you got to be careful with that. He actually kind of put it in behind because he saw the linebacker out in front of him. Owen Daniels not ready to turn that back hip to the ball right here. Again, normally he'll come up with these types of catches, but I think it surprised him on that type of route. Very rarely will you throw it in behind the receiver because he's working so horizontally across the field.
Schaub 7 of 11, 91 yards. But Tate has been the story here in the opening quarter. Wrapped up after a gain of a yard by Cameron Jordan. They're also playing the Saints defensively without Junior Galette. They have high hopes for him this year. Martez Wilson still hurt. Total domination in the first quarter for the Texans.
Yeah, and Rob Ryan's in a tough position. He still needs to learn about this defense. He needs to learn about his defensive coaches. They're all the same except for one guy from last year. But there's only so much you want to show. They have an opener in the division against Atlanta. Don't want to show a whole lot. So it's tough position for Rob Ryan to get done what he wants to get done, yet not tip his hand.
Ninth play of the drive, 3rd down and 9, and sacked all the way back to the 32-yard line is Shaw by Cameron Jordan.
We talked about Cameron Jordan now. He's that one guy on the Saints that you better count for. He's going to come from this backside and just overpowers the tackle, then slips to the outside. Good pressure play side as well. Nice rushing ends by the New Orleans Saints right here. This is the kind of pressure with just a 4-man rush that Rob Ryan is looking for. He'd like not to have to commit safeties.
Well, not good news for Saints fans. Very slow to get up, and that's Will Smith.
Yeah, we talked about the importance of Will Smith coming. He was the other guy coming off that backside, and he is an anchor for them, opposite of Cameron Jordan. I imagine that's the last we'll see of him today.
This will be a 48-yard field goal try for Randy Bullock. Good snap, good hold, and a good kick. Couple of minutes into the second quarter, 10-0 Houston.
Today's game is sponsored by the all-new 2014 Chevy Silverado and by Riddick, starring Vin Diesel. Riddick in theaters and IMAX everywhere September 6th.
They're going to take a look at Will Smith. They've already been ravaged by injuries, have the Saints on defense. During training camp, Kenyon Coleman and Victor Butler both brought in as free agents. Both of them hurt, more than likely out for the year. Martez Wilson has missed a lot of time. Junior Galette, they figure he'll be ready for the season opener. And now all of a sudden Will Smith having to go back into the locker room. Drew Brees trots back onto the field. It'll be his 3rd possession of the afternoon.
Now, I know it's Drew Brees, and I know it's the New Orleans Saints as you see Will Smith leave the field, but they got to get something out of this drive. They don't need a whole lot to feel good about themselves because this offense is one of the best in the National Football League. But this is the last substance snaps they're going to get, particularly until the opener. They want to come away feeling a little bit better than they can about themselves up to this point.
3 and out on their first drive. 5 plays, 24 yards on the second drive. They set up the screen to Mark Ingram out of the backfield, and the former Heisman Trophy winner out of Alabama is all the way up to midfield. First big play of the game for the Saints.
This is a well-developed, well-timed screen. I want you to watch the way this thing plays itself out. Brees draws them in. Look at this convoy out in front of Mark Ingram. That's big bodies down the field. That's a safety's worst nightmare to see a big body like that running down on him. The screen game, obviously a huge part of what the New Orleans Saints do, given the caliber of their backs and their threat down the field in the passing game.
It's Tim Lolito, backup guard, leading the way on that screen for Ingram, who gets his first carry. And back to the line of scrimmage. The running attack was non-existent last year in the Saints offense, and when they were among the best offensive teams and winning teams in the NFL, winning being the key word, they were running the ball for better than 130 yards a game in 2009 and 2011. Last year, only 6 teams rushed for fewer yards in the Saints.
Well, there's 3 parts to the equation for them: passing the ball, running the ball, and defense. And when 2 of them aren't very good, not running the ball well, and playing down bad defense, you find yourself out of the playoffs.
Brissett in a run of 3 straight years in the postseason. There's a catch. Breaking a tackle is Thomas. He's across the 15 to the 10 and will find the end zone. Pierre Thomas. 51-yard touchdown reception.
Well, Joe Mays makes a mistake here. This is just nothing more than a dump-off pass for Drew Brees. But Joe Mays, rather than wrapping up to make the tackle, he's trying to strip it. Now, I understand that, and I understand the importance of turnovers. But all of a sudden now this turns into a 6 for a touchdown for New Orleans because you're not wrapping up. I understand turnovers, but hey, let's wrap up and make the tackle first.
Not only did Mays miss a tackle, but after he missed it, his own man chopped him down, which gave Thomas all that daylight. Point after by Garrett Hartley is good. But Pierre Thomas has been such a solid player for the Saints. Running the ball, catching it out of the backfield. He goes 51 yards here to get the Saints on the board. $28 yards total, 5 plays their first 2 drives, 80 yards. Capped off by a touchdown. 51 yards to Pierre Thomas. Deji Kareem standing back and waiting for the Texans on the kickoff. And back through the end zone. Let's check in with Laura for more on the injury a moment ago to Will Smith.
Tom, the Saints don't give injury report updates during the preseason, but I can tell you I saw what we all saw, which was the trainer working on Will's right knee. The good news was he was touching all over and saying, does this hurt, does this hurt? And he was waving off everything. We saw him get off the bench on his own, walked into the locker room with no assistance. So that's the good news.
Real good news. Laura, thank you. Laura's been very busy. She was working a pregame for the Atlanta Falcons last night and handling their sideline reporting. Matt Schaub on the crossing pattern. And is able to find Graham for the 3rd time. I beg your pardon, Owen Daniels on the reception. Well, from the crew that brings you America's #1 pregame show comes Fox Football Daily. Get everything you love on Sunday, every day of the week. Fox Football Daily, weeknights only on Fox Sports 1. And this week, don't miss terrific one-on-one interview with Texan star J.J. Watt. We very much enjoyed our conversation with the reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year 2 days ago, Brian. I mean, you talk about Midwestern, down-to-earth, as rock solid as it gets. That is Wisconsin native J.J. Watt.
And to watch him at practice, I'm not real concerned about him not getting a lot of snaps in preseason. That guy was all over the field. I don't care if it was after rushing the passer and the throw down the field. He's running 20, 30, 40 yards on every play. A supremely conditioned athlete that's got an unbelievable motor.
3rd down and maybe a foot. And blown dead before it ever started. They're going to back him up 5.
Number 88, offense. 5-yard penalty, still 3rd down.
That's Graham, the backup tight end.
Well, nothing makes you madder now, I tell you what, than going from a 3rd and 1 to a 3rd and 6. Here's J.J. Watt. Let's remember now, he's not playing today, okay? And I watched his warm-up. I also saw him catching the ball. You know what? He can play tight end. Look at it right there. The firmness with his hands. I'll take him at tight end any day. And again, a little bit of backhanded high five to the fans.
Those tri-steps look a little bit like you there when he sort of flex out.
Yeah, I love the eye pre. God bless you, man.
So 3rd down and 6, and wide open is Johnson. And that's a first down to the 40-yard line. And Keenan Lewis wondering what happened.
He jumped all over this. Look at, he gets caught peeking in the backfield a little bit, turns around, saw the little stutter, fell back inside because he thought Andre Johnson was going to run the slant. Instead, he faded to the outside. Nice touch by Matt Schaub to the all-pro wide receiver.
Johnson, the Texans' first-round pick back in 2003 out of Miami of Florida. Then he wondered, could he come all the way back from injury in 2011. Just another great year. Caught from behind is Schaub, and that's Glenn Foster, who's trying to win a spot on this Saints team. And the rookie out of Illinois, the undrafted rookie out of Illinois, has his 4th sack of the preseason.
And again, we talk about that inside pressure that's so lethal for a quarterback. Foster did a nice job of splitting a double team between the guard and the center and just physically overwhelmed him. That drives you nuts as a coach when you got 2 guys on 1 and he still gets home to the quarterback.
Second down and 11, and Tate wrapped up. Good play by the #1 pick out of Texas, Kenny Vaccaro.
Tom, didn't they just light up both Sean Payton and Rob Ryan? And they talked about Kenny Vaccaro. Sean Payton said something interesting. Not since Jeremy Shockey as a rookie. He said, have I seen a player where from the very first snap of OTA you said, wow, this guy's going to be special. That's high praise.
And many of you wondering, Jeremy Shockey, Sean Payton, the connection. That's when Sean was an assistant coach for the New York Giants. Shockey came into the league. Looking down the field, and no flag. Great coverage downfield on Keyshawn Martin. And Patrick Robinson, who's missed the first 2 games of the preseason after undergoing knee surgery, should get some valuable snaps here today.
They're looking for Patrick Robinson. This is a first-round draft choice from a couple years ago, Tom. They've been waiting for him to be able to step up and step into that starting role. More plays like that, they may get their wish.
And test the leg of Bullock here, 55-yarder. More than enough. Wow. 48 and now 55. 13-7 Texans. 13-7 Texans halfway through the second quarter.
Well, we got to say happy birthday to my 91-year young mother, Mildred. This is for you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mildred. Happy birthday to you. That's good stuff.
I promise you, rather than have me there, she'd rather be watching a football game you and I are doing right now.
She loves watching football. She watches you watches us every single week.
She always asks me why you pick on me so much.
Well, why wouldn't I? I mean, she wouldn't expect anything different. Happy birthday, Mildred.
Mom would have liked this. Look at this. This thing would have been good with another 10 more yards. Look at the range on this thing. That's tough from that angle because you tend to have to drive it to get that kind of height and range. That's a heck of a kick.
Well, the day is over for Drew Brees. 4 out of 6, 104 yards. 51 of those coming on the short pass, long run for a touchdown by Pierre Thomas. So now Luke McCown in his 10th season in the NFL and comes out throwing. And a first down catch made by Jimmy Graham. McCown in the preseason with the Saints for the 2nd straight year, but then he left to go to Atlanta as a backup to Matt Ryan. And you see his career numbers He's had a very, very good preseason, hitting on now 19 of 29 and a couple of touchdowns.
Well, and obviously the backup quarterback now for Drew Brees, this hasn't been a high priority because this guy's Iron Man. He never comes out. But this is a good enough team offensively. You've got to have a stable presence at the backup quarterback position.
I want to ask you about this guy right here, though. I want to ask you about Mark Ingram. Now, former Heisman Trophy winner, first-round pick in 2011 out of Alabama. Battled through a lot of injuries his rookie year, and he had the toe injury, the knee injury last year. Yeah, he led the team in rushing, but it was only for 600 yards and averaged at 3.9 per carry. Is this a big year for Mark Ingram?
It should be, but the problem is you're going to see a rotation of Pierre Thomas, we've already talked about, Darren Sproles. They want to run the ball, make no mistake, but I don't think Mark Ingram is going to be that 300-plus carry type of guy, even though he's probably capable of being just that.
Boy, there's a good throw and a catch by the always dependable Lance Moore.
He's just the Energizer Bunny, is what Sean Payton called him. He says, I'm going to let him play for a little bit. I'm going to pull him out, and then he's going to stand next to me the rest of the game and complain that he needs more reps. He's just a guy. He's the overachieving. It's the way he's made his whole career. He was an undrafted free agent in Cleveland, and he knows he's just got to keep fighting because there's other people going to breathe down his neck. They like this Kenny Stills in here and the way he's playing.
Lance Moore out of the University of Toledo. Rolling is McCown, and he'll just throw it away. You know, Moore, 65 catches last year, eclipsed 1,000 yards for the first time in his career. And those are the numbers we talked about for Drew Brees today. Very quickly, just getting back to Lance Moore, it seems like the Saints have had great success with undrafted rookie free agents. Now, Moore initially 05 and 06 on the practice squad. And he has evolved into one of the real playmakers on this offense.
That's because they find specific roles for these guys.
In the hands of Darren Sproles for the first time. And he dances his way across midfield to the 47.
Talk about specific roles. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You can look at an athlete and find a dozen things why he can or cannot play a given position. But I remember from Denny Green, one of my early mentors, don't tell me what a guy can't do. Tell me what he can do. If he could do everything, we'd take him in the first 3 rounds. But these later round or undrafted free agent, there's got to be something they can do. And that's where you get those treasures in the undrafted or late rounds. You find a very specific role for them, like a Lance Moore.
Third down and 4. And there's Sproles, and they'll move the chains. The first down to the 36-yard line.
Darren Sproles is a defense worst nightmare because it's not just out of the backfield, although they want to run the ball to Sproles a little bit more. That has kind of fallen off a little bit last year. But Sproles, you can see the numbers there. The matchups, I don't care whether you put a nickel guy on him, a safety, God forbid a linebacker, the matchup or a mismatch you have with Darren Sproles on your interior defenders shouldn't be legal.
Ball start, number 68, offense. 5-yard penalty, still first down.
That'll make it first and 15. Ryan Harris jumping a little bit early. Or Lolito, I beg your pardon.
You know, this offensive line is something, there's not many concerns offensively for the Saints. We talk about the defense being the big thing. But the offensive line is in a little bit of transition. We already talked about Jermon Bushrod going up to Chicago. Charles Brown taking over that left side. The offensive line is one that has to be a concern in terms of keeping up the productivity of this offense. Now I want to go back to the Mark Ingram conversation, Tom, and this is one of the tough ones. We are a running back by committee league right now, and like I said, there's only a handful of guys that have 300-plus carries. Arian Foster, AP, obviously, Alfred Morris, Doug Martin, Marshawn Lynch last year. But Mark Ingram could be one of those guys. I just don't know that they're going to give him that opportunity in New Orleans because you've got Pierre Thomas, because you've got Darren Sproles, and because you got Drew Brees in that passing offense.
Pump fake, going up top to Graham. And good coverage by Daniel Manning in his 3rd year as a Texan safety after the first 5 seasons in Chicago.
It was fun listening to Drew Brees talk about Jimmy Graham, who's just exploded onto the game as one of the premier tight ends. But again, as I said in the open, you got to remember how little football this guy's really played. He says they laugh at film because the guy doesn't even know how to fall like a football player. He says it's as awkward as all could get out when you watch him in practice going down because he doesn't even know how to fall like a football player.
3rd down and 16, and they hand it off to Thomas. And he's down to the 33-yard line, dragging Jefferson for a couple of yards. So in a preseason game, Brian, maybe you let McCown go for it. They thought about it, and now they'll send the field goal unit out.
Well, they need the reps too. You need your kicker to get into that rhythm to be able to understand, okay, what's the range? And obviously the circumstances here are pretty pristine with the roof closed. There's not a lot of wind. And you also want to reward your offense for a little bit of offensive productivity.
51-yard attempt for Hartley. A beauty to make it 13-10. We're in Houston, Texas. One more week of the preseason, and then we're on our way to the start of the 2013 regular season. Heard so much about the leadership of Drew Brees, and whether it's with, backup quarterback, other guys on offense, even guys on the defensive side of the football.
When Drew Brees walks in the room, there's a calm about him that the great ones have. An absolute control, the visualization he talked about, the accountability he talked about with his teammates. It's always a joy to sit and visit with a guy.
All right, coming up on halftime. What's coming up, Kurt Menefee?
Coming up on the Fox Football Daily halftime show, Randy and Brian will break down the first 2 quarters of the Texans and Saints. Jay's been working the phones, and he'll have some interesting quarterback battles and some updates on those. Meanwhile, I, along with Mike Pereira, will just keep breaking down first half tape. That's what we do here, Coach Billick.
Well, guys, if I got future Hall of Famers like Randy Moss and Brian Urlacher, why is it Glazier who's the one who's talking?
Well, Mike Pereira, he got a lot of your money through the years.
Yeah, he did.
As a head coach. Now, first down pass incomplete. Mr. Pereira, former head of officials in the National Football League, he hit you up for exactly how much in fine money?
That would be $75,000. And in case the fans out there wonder, yes, they do collect the fines. Trust me, my wife and daughters remind me of that on a regular basis.
Wow.
But you know me to be a calm, calculated. I do know to go off some occasion.
You're right. There's only one lunatic.
So don't upset me because you can't find me.
Schaub looking around. Dangerous throw there. Nearly intercepted by David Hawthorne. Got a hand on it to knock it down.
Well, Houston has been very physical with this Saints defense. Rob Ryan obviously brought in to correct the last place defense in the National Football League. But right now you can see the push that this offensive line of the Houston Texans has, and Rob Ryan knows he's got a lot of work. You don't just show up and say, okay, we're just going to be better just because of the scheme. They need some players as well. Cameron Jordan, obviously outstanding player. They're missing some players right now. I understand that. But they got heavy duty starting out the season against that explosive Atlanta Falcons offense.
Schaub looking down the field and looked like a catch. It could have been made by Martin. It would have been more than enough for a first down up close to the 40-yard line. But for the first time in their last 4 possessions, the Texans will not score.
Well, even without Matt Schaub and the Texan offense got to feel pretty good about their day in this first half. I don't imagine we're going to see them or Matt Schaub coming out in the third quarter. I think they're a veteran enough team that they don't need to go through that process.
Cadet backed up to the 20 on the punt by Leckler. Cadet did a good job for the Saints last year, making their team and contributing primarily on special teams. There is a penalty flag down in the middle of the field.
During the kick, illegal block in the back, number 81, receiving team. That'll be half the distance to the goal from the end of the kick. It'll be first down, New Orleans.
That's Michael Higgins, their third string tight end. Well, you've heard so much about Fox Sports 1 on the air and available all over all major cable and satellite providers. Go to foxsports1.com to find out what channel Fox Sports 1 and Fox Sports 2 are on in your area. Again, that's foxsports1.com. DirecTV Dish, among others. On the satellite side, we have the channels for you there. Saw Regis Philbin earlier this morning on Fox and Friends. He is something, isn't he?
Boy, he's got an eye. You want to pray to have that kind of energy at that age.
And of course, he's part of our maiden voyage on Fox Sports 1. McCown, first down throw. Boy, that's a good one. And then dropped. Boy, that was a beautiful throw to Nick Toon. Should have been caught.
This is just a high 7 route or a corner route that, again, we go through. You've got to make the catch through the process. He clearly has control. That little bit of a bobble there, and you've got to have control through the process on the ground. Clearly comes out.
Well, we have an injury on the field. Starting nose tackle Earl Mitchell shaken up for the Texans. We'll take a timeout. Back in a moment. Earl Mitchell appears to be all right. Third round pick in 2010 out of Arizona. Been very effective off the bench his first 3 years in the league. But Brian, he is slated as a starter for the first time this year.
Well, you combine him with the J.J. Watt from the tackle position. That's the amazing thing, is the pressure they get from the inside. Then when you add the outside pressure when they get Whitney Merciless back, this is a formidable front seven that could put some pressure on with just a 4- and 5-man rush.
Out of the backfield, they swing it to Ingram. And a penalty flag down.
Holding, number 79, offense. That penalty is declined. It's third down.
That's Bryce Harris, backup tackle.
Yeah, and this is not what you want to have happen in this 2-minute mentality where outside of 2 minutes. But again, we talked about preseason. Sean Payton would like to get all the situations covered for his team. This is not what he had in mind, because particularly in a 2-minute environment or at the end of the half, you have a couple priorities. But rule number 1 is don't give the ball back to the defense on a short field. So maybe you can't go the length of the field and score, but you can grind down the clock and just maintain possession, because Houston Texans have a chance of getting the ball now, and just by de facto the punt, they may be in scoring position. Wow.
Walt Anderson, our referee today.
Neutral zone infraction, number 96, defense, moved into the neutral zone, causing an immediate reaction by the offensive player.
I talked about offensively jumping and taking a 3rd and 1 to 3rd and 6. Now defensively, you got a chance on a 3rd and long, 3rd and 10. Maybe force them to punt outside of 2 minutes. You're putting your team in a position to score. Now you've put them down to a 3rd and 6. Much more manageable. Those are the kind of penalties that will drive a head coach nuts.
That's Tim Jamison, who missed all of last season after tearing an Achilles tendon. Going for it all, and that is the rookie out of Oklahoma, Kenny Stills, with a spectacular catch along the sideline.
And not only a spectacular catch, you're going to see him up here at the top, but the ability to come down inbounds with both feet. This guy, you can't cover any stronger than Kareem Jackson did right there. He's right there. You almost could make a case for pass interference. Has control, keeps his feet in bounds with total possession through the process. That's a heck of a catch.
They're very excited about Stills. They took him in the 5th round. He left after his junior year at Oklahoma. So we have reached the 2-minute warning. Saints trying to get the lead at halftime. Well, after the 40-yard reception to the rookie Kenny Stills, The Saints have the football at the Texans' 46-yard line. 2 minutes to play until halftime. No Arian Foster here today. In fact, we've also not touched upon the fact that the Texans have decided not to play their #1 pick from this year, DeAndre Hopkins, who suffered a mild concussion in their last preseason game. McCown rolling, stays on his feet, and slings it across his body, and the catch is made close to another first down. The fullback Austin Johnson playing in place today of their starter Jed Collins. Clock continues to run. Saints have all 3 of their timeouts remaining. They're going to hand it off, and that's Ingram inside the 20 and dropped to the 15-yard line. I would imagine they use a timeout here, and that they do.
That's interesting that they have. You can see here with Johnson leading up in the fullback that they're in a 2-back alignment in a 2-minute situation. May have caught the Texans off guard because they just then shove it right down their throat, right down the middle, with Ingram gashing him. I think they caught the Houston Texans a little unawares with that 2-back alignment in a 2-minute situation.
And not only a 2-back alignment, they're in I formation.
Yeah, it just said, hey,
thought he was back at Alabama.
Simple as a screwdriver. We're going to come right downhill. And Mark Ingram is capable of that. We alluded to it earlier. You know, I know you have the running back by committee. Pierre Thomas is very good. What do you do with Darren Sproles? But Mark Ingram's pretty good. You know, the old ball coach that says, you know what, lining up and shoving it down your throat with the eye a whole bunch and being physical. Sean Payton wants to run the ball. That's a guy that can do it.
Ingram to the sideline, first down. And McCown had an eye on Thomas, but decided just to throw it away. Good coverage here by Mays.
Well, New Orleans subscribes, like most teams, the touchdown to check down read, looking deep, nothing back in the end zone. Houston knows that. They're going to play very passive along the back end, make them throw the ball underneath.
Saints still have 3/5 of their starting offensive line on the field. Center, left guard, left tackle. McCown wide open in the end zone. And capping it off, why not, is Kenny Stills. And the Saints have the lead for the first time with 1:14 to play until halftime.
Well, what did I say? Touchdown to check down. They're putting 2 verticals right down the middle of the field. Nice little nod to the corner. Breaks back inside. Really poor technique by Jonathan Joseph, the all-pro. Really got bit on the outside route. Touchdown to check down. Of the 2, I prefer the touchdown.
Indeed. Well, Stills in the first preseason game, he had a drop, he had a fumble, he was called for offensive pass interference. Came back in the second game, 4 catches, 64 yards and a touchdown. (17-13) New Orleans. As always, we'd love to welcome the men and women in uniform serving around the globe, watching our telecast today. 175 countries and abroad, ships at sea on AFN, the American Forces Network. And for all of those that have served, are serving, and will serve, we cannot thank you enough. Serving the greatest country in the world.
Tom, I got to go down to Guantanamo Bay in the offseason. That was incredible. It's a multi-force unit, because you have the Navy that runs the base, you have the Marines that will do the fence line, Air Force runs security, oddly enough, and the Army runs the penitentiary down there, the prison. And those people, I tell you what, you talk about mission-driven, serving their country under tough circumstances, because they're getting beaten up every day. And God love them. That was a great group to visit with down there.
And of course, they're keeping an eye on some of the nastiest people that walk the globe. (17-13). And taking a knee is Kareem. So now all of a sudden, with a minute 14, you know, Brian, you coached for many, many years. You won a Super Bowl, took multiple teams to the playoffs. With a minute 14, do you want to get a look at your quote-unquote 2-minute offense here?
And I think that's why we see Matt Schaub back in the game. Yeah, you don't give a lot of opportunities. As you said, these guys, Matt Schaub in particular, and the other starters, they're not going to see the field next week when they go and play Miami. So, or excuse me, they play Dallas on Thursday, a short week. So this is a great teaching opportunity, all but for a veteran group like Matt Schaub and what's around him.
Okay, empty backfield. 5 receivers set. And Schaub wide open across the middle. Johnson up to the 37-yard line, and they're in hurry-up mode, closing in on a minute.
And this is the type of situation we talked about, Matt Schaub stepping up to a championship level. This is the exact kind of situation we're talking about to consistently come up with big plays in this situation.
Under a little bit of pressure there, incomplete. 3 timeouts remaining. 51 seconds left. Schaub in his last 20 regular season starts has won 16 of those 20 with 27 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Of course, he took over after the trade in 07. They were a 500 team his first 2 years. They had their first winning season in 2010 before winning back-to-back divisional titles. Well, what a throw, what a catch. That's Owen Daniels, and that is a first down and a timeout.
And make no mistake, when we talk about Matt Schaub taking that next step, he's had good numbers. He's been to the Pro Bowl. It's just a matter of in crunch time, particularly in the playoffs, you can see here that's where it's got to be, you know, and against the good teams. This is regular season only, but it's non-playoff teams versus playoff teams. You got to be good against the good people. You know, the old formula is beat the teams you're supposed to beat, split with the really good ones. And it's splitting with the good ones. That's a tough one because there's a lot of good teams in this league. Matt Schaub is an excellent quarterback, but any hesitation you hear around the country when you talk about, well, how good are the Texans? Anytime there's that pause, it's usually because, okay, yeah, but can Matt Schaub lead to a championship? And there's only one way to quiet those critics: take them to a championship.
And Joe Flacco heard a little bit.
Absolutely, and did last year, and obviously quieted those critics. And by the way, got a pretty good paycheck.
You're right about that. Martin run out of bounds. We'll see where they spot it. Malcolm Jenkins there to shove him out at the 43-yard line.
And it's not like he doesn't have the assets around him. He's got 3/5 of his offensive line is in the Pro Bowl. He's got a Pro Bowl tight end, a Pro Bowl wide receiver, and a Pro Bowl running back. Okay, so there's plenty around him to help. It's not all just Matt Schaub, but he has plenty of assets to take this team and his play to that next level.
They still got that regular group, even without Wade Smith along the offensive line. Crossing pattern, and once more, that is Andre Johnson. And he's close to the 35-yard line. Timeout, Texans.
And this is the part of what we talk about, the experience. It's the use of the timeouts. You know physically the guys are going to perform. Matt Schaub knows how to throw the ball. Andre Johnson knows how to catch the ball. The offensive linemen know how to block. But it's the sequence. There's a certain orchestration to it. The way we operated was I didn't want my quarterback have to worry about, well, do I call timeout or not? I'll take care of that. I'll tell you to go. I'll tell you timeout. You want to take as much off the quarterback's plate as you can. Gary Kubiak and Matt Schaub have this type of rhythm, but you can't simulate it like you can get it in a game, and it's that type of communication beyond the physical execution of it that you're looking for as that coach, play caller, and quarterback.
All right, 1st and 10, 34 seconds left. And they spot the ball just outside the 36. Blitz coming. Schaub gets it away and threw it a little bit behind Johnson. 2nd down.
Well, that's a tough one for a quarterback because you got pressure in your face. You're always afraid of leading a receiver on an inside breaking route when you've got pressure in your face because you're not absolutely sure what's inside of him. So you try to be a little safe. You get it on the back shoulder, and because of it, you have an incompletion. You don't think Drew Brees still isn't in this game? He's still buckled up. his chin strap. He's not even in the game. He's not even in on offense anymore, and he's still strapped up, going through the mental reps.
Oh, and Daniels in motion. Blitz coming again. Schaub just unloads it. Looked like Johnson may have gotten away with a shove inside the 15 on Keenan Lewis. Catch made, a first down. Clock stops. Nope, continuing to run. They'll spike it. 12 seconds, 11 seconds remain.
And that's part of that process I'm talking about. The difference between calling a timeout and spiking it. Here you're going to see on the outside. And this is, look at that same little stutter move. We saw that earlier. Not a bad position, but Lewis rolled out of it to try to take the route down the field. And a big physical receiver like Andre Johnson, Calvin Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald. That's hard to defend because you got to take away the deep route, and then they use that size to back shoulder it and come up with the ball.
Once more empty backfield. Schaub out of the shotgun. Crossing pattern. Catch made. Still on his feet to the 2-yard line. Garrett Graham, and another timeout. All right, 4 seconds. You're going to take one shot, or are you going to kick the field goal? They're going to kick it.
Yeah, and then that's other than you could make a case. Well, why not? It's preseason. Let's practice what we want to do with 4 seconds left, 1 shot left into the end zone. They're choosing to kick the field goal. I understand that. I don't know that, and of course it's easy for me to sit up here and say that down there on the sideline. I'm, are you kidding me? We're going to kick it. But sitting up here, I'm going, let's teach a little bit. Let's go in there and throw up your favorite fade route and see if we can come up with it.
Don't bring it up. It's a preseason for crying out loud.
So practice something else.
Now we watched the Bengals throw one to A.J. Green. Yeah. Next thing you know, here comes a field goal unit.
All right.
Well, the Saints trying to keep them off the board, but the field goal is good. 3 of them in the first half by Randy Bullock. That one from 21 yards, and the Saints with a 1-point halftime lead. Our Fox NFL preseason special continues with a cast of our Fox Football Daily crew from Fox Sports 1. The halftime report coming up after this. Very early on in the opening quarter, it looked like a game the Texans were just going to dominate. But New Orleans played quite well over the final quarter plus, and eventually would take the lead at halftime, 17-16. We'll wait and see whether Matt Schaub, well, apparently he's removed the shoulder pad, so we're not going to see him anymore. But some of the numbers, Coach Billick, from the opening half.
Well, both teams are going to feel good about what they did in the first half. You really can't measure it as a game as a whole. Both teams did some things pretty good. For New Orleans, they seem to get a little bit overwhelmed physically, which again, with what Rob Ryan has to do to get this defense back on track, that's got to be a little concern. And obviously Houston and Matt Schaub, you see here, has to feel very good about that final drive. Simply because you have an opportunity to get better. That's the kind of drive we're talking about that will move Matt Schaub and this Houston Texan team into that championship bracket.
Now here in the second half, we're probably going to see a number of players who are fighting for their careers. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. Preston Parker, who will bring this one out, is trying to win a spot as an extra receiver, and certainly getting it done on special teams goes a long way in that direction. And he's all the way up to the 47-yard line. Brian, as a head coach, here you are in the second half. You've seen these guys in practice every single day, going all the way back to the training camp. And now they're trying to make the team. As a head coach, do you have your eye on virtually every move here in the second half?
Well, there's no bigger half of football in the preseason than this half. Why? Both these teams are going to go on the road on a short week on Thursday. You are going to make the decisions between now and then. There's not much you're going to see in between. There's not much you're going to see in that game, because those conversations, we cut down to 75 here on Tuesday, then down to the 53. So, yeah, this is a big half of football for a whole bunch of people.
And an interference penalty apparently has been thrown on Brandon Harris. He was in coverage of Courtney Roby, who of course is Won a spot year after year on this Saints team, primarily due to his contributions.
Number 26, defense. First down.
On special teams.
Boy, and that's, that's pretty good coverage. Again, did you change the impetus of the receiver? I thought he played that pretty good. But those are the kind of things that are going to happen in the second half of this game, because it's all about one-on-one matchups. Not much about scheming here by both teams. You're just looking for, can you beat the guy in front of you?
Roby wrapped up to the 7-yard line. Let's check in downstairs with Laura.
Well, as we're seeing, the Saints offensive starters are out. Sean Payton said he feels pretty good offensively about how they look heading into the Atlanta game, because that's it for the preseason. That's what we're going to see from him. He liked what he saw, especially in the second quarter when they settled down and found their groove. Defensively, said more work to do, said there'll be a lot of corrections after watching film, but did feel good about making Houston settle for field goals and stopping giving up the big plays.
Andy Tanner on the reception, and Andy Tanner into the end zone for a touchdown. So here, since the start of the second half, you're getting to look at Preston Parker trying to win a spot as a wide receiver and in competition with this man, Andy Tanner.
Yeah, nice job on just a little stop route and then finds his way into the end zone. The key for this fourth and fifth receiver on any team, let alone the New Orleans Saints, really becomes a special teams element as well. Because they're obviously set when they've got Marcus Colston, they got Lance Moore, Jimmy Graham at tight end. But in terms of these other receivers, if you're going to make this team, you've got to do it. If you're going to be that fifth or sixth receiver on you got to do what we just saw there by Tanner. But obviously, we've got to see it on special teams as well.
Scoring review. We're going to take a timeout.
Today's game on Fox is sponsored by McDonald's. I'm loving it. By Mazda. We believe if it's not worth driving, it's not worth building. And by Fox Sports 1, America's new sports network.
The ruling on the field stands.
It is a touchdown as the ruling on the field stands for Andy Tanner. Tanner, one of those guys who's easy to root for. As he finds the end zone, young man who went to Rockwall, Texas high school. His high school coach used to toss bricks to his wide receivers to soften their hands. And if you're wondering where you've heard that story before, Jerry Rice, of course, the son of a bricklayer. And that's what his father used to do for him growing up. But Andy Tanner has spent the last 3 years on several stints on the Saints practice squad. When you look up his bio in their media guide, the words signed, waived, released, or re-signed appear 33 times.
Yeah, and that's murder. I tell you what, you feel like a yo-yo, up and down, up and down. He's one of these tidewater guys. That was an interesting term. You're a baseball guy. I had not heard it before.
My father used to be the broadcaster.
Talking about tidewater guys, referring to guys that you they know your system, you keep them around in one form or another.
Well, it's like the AAA affiliate. That's what it's alluded to. Tidewater Tides used to be the AAA affiliate of the New York Mets.
Yeah, I'd never heard that term before. I think it's a Parcellian term, but it is. There's a lot of guys like that, and that's tough on a young man, because at some point, do I get on with my life's work? But yet they think enough of me to keep bringing me back. I'm going to keep chasing the dream, and it's a dream worth holding on to. And here again, what did I say? Here's the key right here. The guy just scored a touchdown. But now he's got to be on the kickoff team, because this is where he's going to make the 53-man roster.
Dennis Johnson brings it out from deep in his own end zone. And a pretty good return up to the 25-yard line. And Tanner's in there on the tackle. How about that? Tanner, a touchdown reception and the tackle on the kickoff return. Laura, what about Gary Kubiak at halftime?
Well, Gary Kubiak was very pleased with the offense. They got about 40 snaps in, which is a lot of work that he wanted to get done. Starters obviously done for the day, but he loved how they moved the ball, especially the run game. Defensively, he said more work to do. One theme troubling him all season long, giving up the big play in the first half. That was consistent today as well.
Well, thank you. We get a look at the backup quarterback, and that is T.J. Yates in his third year out of the University University of North Carolina. Of course, in 2011, Yates took over as a starter for not only Matt Schaub, but his backup, who was also injured, you may remember, Matt Leinart. And Yates led them into the playoffs and, in fact, orchestrated their first playoff win in franchise history. That came over the Bengals.
And Gary Kubiak said they'll likely keep all three quarterbacks, T.J. Yates and Kenham, who they really like. They think he's got a good future as well. More and more teams choosing to go with two quarterbacks. I think they're going to keep three.
Let's tie a ribbon around the afternoon of Matt Schaub, and more than likely his preseason, figuring not to play in the fourth and final preseason game. He had a good preseason. And beautifully taking the Texans down the field in a little more than a minute to get a field goal on the final play of the first half. Saints leading 24-16. And Dennis Johnson, who returned the kickoff a moment ago, very close to a first down. Needed to get just beyond the 45. So Yates will get a lot of playing time here in the second half. Case Keenum, who is the backup. Both of them have had excellent in fact, all three of the quarterbacks have just had a great preseason. The three have combined for 5 touchdown passes, only 1 interception. Keenum will start the final game of the preseason. That one laid off to Lestard Jean, and that's a first down catch on 2nd and a foot down to the 35-yard line.
Well, in talking with Gary Kubiak, you know, when you have a third quarterback, the easy thing to say is, well, just carry 2 and we'll put 1 on the developmental squad. But they're not sure a guy like Case Keenum has shown enough that they could get him through waivers, that he might not end up someplace else. And they think enough of his abilities that, and it's tough because you're keeping an active roster spot that, you know, could conceivably see much more playing time than your third string quarterback.
Of course, they know all about Keenum here in Houston. That's where he played collegiately. Yates steps up into the pocket, throws down the middle. And into the air to make the catch again is Lestard Jean. Signed as a college free agent 2 years ago. Had 6 catches all of last year. That's tough catch in traffic.
And just the ability to go up and know, because you know you're going to get hit anytime you go to the inside. And you're going to see this. You're not going to see a lot of scheming on either side of the ball right now. It does Rob Ryan no good to come up with some magical pressure to get to the quarterback. He's got to find out about the players on this defense. Can you get the one-on-one matchups? Can you win? Be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there, doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Deji Kareem off the right side, and he's stopped close to the 15-yard line. Gain of close to 4, 2nd down and 6 upcoming. First drive of the second half for the Houston Texans. Rob Ryan left as defensive coordinator, let go by the Dallas Cowboys, but apparently left on very good terms with owner Jerry Jones and Jason Garrett. That Dallas defense just ravaged by injuries last year. And that's good enough for a first down and a carry to Dennis Johnson.
Keep in mind that Sean Payton had come from the Dallas Cowboys under Bill Parcells, has a very close relationship with Jerry Jones. So obviously that was part of the orchestration when they chose to let go of Rob Ryan. You know that conversation had to be had between Sean Payton and Jerry Jones. Rob Ryan is an excellent football coach. Now he's been a coordinator for 9 years. He's been through 7 head coaches, so he hasn't been. This is the most stable situation he's been in, from Oakland to Cleveland, even in Dallas, and we all know what comes with the Dallas Cowboys. So with Sean Payton, this is the most stable situation Rob Ryan's been in.
Yates had a wide open receiver, and Johnson got turned around. It's incomplete, 2nd down and goal. Of course, Rob's brother Rex, a head coach, twin brother of the New York Jets, under enormous criticism today after what transpired last night, bringing Mark Sanchez into the game in the 4th quarter. And then Sanchez took a vicious hit from Marvin Austin, and they're hoping he's going to be all right after a very disappointing start by the rookie Geno Smith. Johnson level. And that's Kenny Vaccaro coming up to put a hat on him. 3rd and goal. Today, I would imagine, is a tough day for Rex Ryan.
It is. It's an emotional game, and watching what Rex went through last night, I don't know that he's not second-guessing the fact that he went with Mark Sanchez. Geno Smith did not look very good. To then come back to Mark Sanchez, who now is hurt, it's hard to go back and now justify that decision. That's in hindsight, obviously. And you do, I want to meet the guy that decided that 10 minutes after a 3-hour gut-wrenching emotional experience, and that's what it is when you're coaching in the NFL, but you got to stand in front of the media and explain yourself. I want to meet the guy that came up with that idea, because he and I are going to go round and round a little bit. But you have to calm yourself. You have to recognize that when you go into that situation, you can't let it get the better of you. And I don't know that Rex didn't get a little caught up in it last night.
Well, last year, this Saints defense was just an unmitigated disaster. They were the first time, speaking of the New York Jets, the Saints last year, the first team since the 1975 Jets to finish last in total defense and rushing defense, and in the bottom 2 in pass defense and scoring defense.
Yeah, you're not going to win a lot of football games with that. And Steve Spagnuolo stepped into a tough situation, obviously, with the loss of Sean Payton, the change from one head coach to the other partway through.
Crossing pattern and denied the end zone is Martin on a 3rd down and goal.
And that was a strong move by Sean Payton in the offseason. Remember, he did hire Steve Spagnuolo, and it was a competitive situation. There were a number of teams vying for Steve Spagnuolo's abilities to come in as a defensive coordinator. Very successful in New York. They had put together some pretty good defenses in St. Louis, where he came from the head coach. But that had to be tough, because he hires the guy, then he's not there for the entire year. Now has to come in and fire him and go find a new defensive coordinator.
Well, they're going for it on 4th down and goal out of the I formation, and denied the end zone is Kareem. Ramon Humbert, the first one there to meet him. So inside the 5 on 4 downs, the Texans unable to cross the goal line. 24-16 after the goal line stand delivered by the Saints defense. You go 11 plays, 74 yards, chew up over 6 minutes, and come up empty. Sonny with a handoff and maybe a gain of a yard. Kenny Vaccaro bringing the heat on that last defensive series, but Humbert the first one to meet Kareem short of the goal line.
And then the swarming of the bodies. One thing you're going to get from a Rob or Rex Ryan coach defense is that, and you can see here Kenny Vaccaro paying a little bit of a price. That's what happens when you stick your nose into it, literally on the goal line.
So a new quarterback takes over for the Saints. Penalty flag down. Still on his feet, Kyrie Robinson, who's had an outstanding training camp. Their leading rusher in the preseason.
Holding, number 70, offense. After distance to the goal, still sitting down.
But Marcel Jones, a backup right tackle, is whistled for holding to bring it back.
Yeah, many times when you see a play bounce outside like that, that typically will bring about the holding penalty. You've got hold of it, or you're blocking a defensive end, and all of a sudden the ball jumps outside. You don't know that. He starts to pull away, and then you grab him.
So Ryan Griffin, who played his college football in New Orleans at Tulane University. Catch is made by the fullback Austin Johnson. And he's up across the 5 up to the 7-yard line. That's a gain of 6.
And on this, for the Saints, obviously offensively, a team that's so well established. There's not like there's a whole lot of jobs. And here's a penalty. I think we had an illegal substitution. That's going to happen.
Offensive puddle. It's half the distance to the goal. It's still third down.
Almost unavoidable. That's exactly what it was. When you're rolling the Cowboys and Indians through here, the rest of y'all, as we used to call them, in this second half.
What did you call them?
The rest of y'all. You know, when you're practicing and the first and second team's done, you turn around to the coach and say, hey, put the rest of y'all's in there. That's who those guys are. But and it's a scramble because no, I thought he was. No, I'm backup fullback now. It can be tough.
Well, they pitch it to Cadet. And he's short of a first down. Let's check in with Laura Oatman.
Thanks, Tom. I'm standing here with Matt Schaub, and that's pretty much going to be it until the regular season opener that we see you and your starting offense. What do you think going into the season, how you look?
Yeah, I think we had a great camp. I thought our preseason went well. I thought we had a nice progression from game 1 to game 3, and we executed well tonight. And, we finished off with a nice 2-minute drive to get a field goal before the half, and I thought guys were sharp in what they were doing.
So many people talk about the expectations of this team, which you've been hearing since you've gotten here. It was at first, can they get to the playoffs? Then can they take the next step? Brian and Tom started the show by saying, is Matt Schaub feeling the pressure? So let me ask you, is Matt Schaub feeling the pressure?
No, you know what? I put a lot of pressure on myself, and no more than anyone on the outside world or anybody out there could put on me. And so I have high expectations. I got the right guys around me, and we're just going to take it one game at a time and go out and play.
I heard you say one game at a time, and you knew I'm going to take you right to the Super Bowl as you say that, Matt. I heard what you said, though, I swear. But when it comes to the next step, that seems to be the 3 words that are swirling around this team on the outside. How much do you feel that on the inside?
That's our next step. That's the next step in our progression as a football team and an organization, is to take that next step and win a championship. And that's where our focus is. But right now, at this point in the year, we got to focus on week 1, and it's a long season. But ultimately, that is our goal. And anything short of that's a failure.
Always great to see you, Matt. Thank you so much. Have a great season. Dom.
Boy, thank you. Matt Schaub, thank you. That's Sierra Wood, who checks in for the first time. Another of the many running backs in camp with the Texans. He's out of Notre Dame, 7th leading rusher in the history of Fighting Irish football. 15 carries in the preseason, 80 yards. Pump fake. Keenum flushed out of the pocket. And a catch is made by Alec Lemon, another college free agent out of Syracuse University. And that will move the chains to the Saints' 40-yard line.
And this is where I always called this second half, this is the scouts half, because you're full of a bunch of players of undrafted free agent, later round draft choices. These gems that the scouts like to bring up, and boy, I got this guy. Coach, if we can just get him signed. And for these young people to try to make the team, the scouts love this part of the season, this part of preseason, because it's a chance for their guy to make the team.
Yates turns and hands the football to Johnson. It's interesting in asking Sean Payton. They're 2 days away from the next cut. Then you make the final cut leading up to the opening of the regular season. Were you at all surprised by what he told us he just did recently with his staff and general manager?
No, and I like the idea. It's basically put him in 3 columns. First, okay, absolute, thgoing to make it. I was a little surprised about the number. He said only about 30, 35 guys. Then there's a handful of guys that, okay, no, these guys aren't going to make it. And that leaves you with about 10 to 15 guys in that middle column. Now, some of those guys are there because of injury, and as you say, Marcus Colson, for instance, okay, he's going to be there. There's no question. But now you can quantify it. You don't have to look at 90 guys and say who's going to make it, who's not. I've broken it down to that middle column of guys that now in a half like this, if I'm Sean Payton, I guarantee you he knows the names on that middle column, and that's what he's looking at right now.
And one of those names you just saw coming up to help make the tackle, the rookie out of Georgia Tech, cornerback number 38, Rod Sweeting. They've been very impressed with the way he has played. They fake it one way. Yates rolls the other. Beautifully designed play, and that is a catch by Ryan Griffin, the rookie tight end out of UConn. Well, they really like Griffin. Big man, but they were even surprised how athletic he is.
And as we said earlier, they're very much a 12 personnel or 2 tight end personnel group. They lost James Casey to free agency. That was a pretty good 1-2 punch with Owen Daniels and James Casey. And as we said earlier, with Ryan Griffith and Garrett Graham, they feel very good about their tight end position. Obviously to go with Owens Daniels.
This is the second charge timeout. New Orleans.
First down at the 15. 2:07 to play in the third. Hitting going on here in Houston. Guys trying to win a job.
Today's game is sponsored by Verizon. Never be without football with NFL Mobile from Verizon.
Guys, we're playing.
Well, there you get a look at the waterfall located in uptown Houston, 64 feet tall. And Yates to the end zone, and a drop by Alec Lemon.
Well, this is the same route we saw Kenny Stills catch for the touchdown on the other side of the ball. And boy, that's as clean a throw and catch as ought to be made. That doesn't help your cause, trying to make a football team dropping a wide open touchdown like that.
Coming up before we get out of here today, Rick Smith, the Executive Vice President of Football Operations and General Manager of the Houston Texans, is going to join us to talk about his team in the upcoming year. Down is the call on the field. They're saying the receiver was down.
The ruling on the field was a catch, and the runner was down by contact.
Catch and the runner down by contact.
Well, it sure looks like he has. Well, no, he's down. Obviously, the landed on his bum there, and the minute he got down there, the play is dead at that point. Clearly has possession right there. The ball bounces out after he comes down.
That's Jim Leonard on the tackle. Guy's been around and really made the most. His 9th season in the NFL, most of those with the Jets. Crossing pattern, and wide open, hanging on to it this time is Lemon. So good for that young man. He dropped one a moment ago, got another chance, and that's a touchdown.
And that's important. The fact that you can see a kid that drops the ball and come back and make the play, that's pretty good. Rob Ryan shaking his head. It's tough with this group in the second half. It's those type of plays, the boots and the waggles we saw earlier, the little sneak route underneath by a wide receiver that tends to escape a defense that's just trying to line up, see if they're where they're supposed to be, and trying to be physical enough to make this team.
Point after is good. And it's a one-point game. Saints 24, Texans 23. A touchdown catch by Alec Lemon.
You can have a lot of fun in a New York minute, but there's some things you can't do.
Well, just like Andy Tanner on the other side. Tanner a touchdown catch. And now on the kickoff cover team. Same story for Alec Lemon.
Wearing a number in the teens and having to cover a kick after you score a touchdown is the very definition of a guy with a bubble.
Well, A.J. Green wears a number.
Well, yeah, that's okay. I knew you'd come up with an example. They used to be when you had a team. Now everybody has it. Larry Fitzgerald and the like. It's still a good story.
What number are you wearing this year?
1.
That fella's fired up for football here today.
A little early, but I love it. Elvis impersonation.
There's a good look. I think that was an Evel Knievel impersonation more than Elvis. What do you think?
We're splitting hairs.
Because we're not all that far from Elvis country.
That's right. Everywhere is Elvis country.
You're right about that. Minute 12 to play here in the third quarter. Saints with the football. And Kyrie Robinson wrapped up after a gain of 3 on first down. Never, we ask you, never to be without football. You can get coverage of every NFL game on NFL Mobile. Call ** NFL to download it right now. We talk so much about some of the guys on offense trying to win a job. There are many out there right now on defense trying to do the same thing. Preston Parker on the end around. Parker's an interesting guy. That was the guy who was in the news. Some of you may remember. The Bengals initially brought him in, and then Raheem Morris at the time in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers sort of maneuvered a way to snatch him away from the Bengals, who were very upset about it. He came in and played quite well for the Buccaneers, but admittedly said, I didn't have the passion for football that I should have had. They turned him loose, and now he says he loves the game more than any time in his career and trying to win a spot on the Saints roster. That'll be the final play of the third quarter. A 1-point spread as we're off to the fourth. Our Fox NFL pregame and preseason special continues after a break from your local Fox station. Well, we were surprised when, after the clock had run down to 0, a timeout was called. Listen to this. Saw Sean Payton up at the top of your screen talking to the side judge over there.
The side judge didn't make it up. You know, Sean Payton talked about he's got to get back in the groove a little bit, having been out of it for a year. I don't know why you would call timeout in that situation, but you call it. They're going to put it in.
So that will be officially the end of the third quarter. 24-23 Saints. We're going to keep it right here and give you a chance to hear Laura Oakland visit with a very special defender from East Texas.
Yes, he is. J.J. Watt, 20.5 sacks, 16 passes batted. I'm curious which you think is more impressive from your Defensive Player of the Year season.
Sack is so difficult to get in this league. I mean, there's such good offensive linemen, and the quarterbacks are so mobile these days. I would say the sacks. I think the run plays are way harder than anything else, so those are what I'm most proud of.
People say that you are redefining your position. We're seeing things that a defensive lineman haven't done or shouldn't be able to do. What are you doing that we haven't seen before?
I'm just playing hard. I think you've seen it before. I'm just trying to do things. You know, a lot of people told me before last season when I first got here that 3-4 DNs don't make plays. And I set out to try and change that. And if you always set new goals and you always create new standards and set new heights, then there's no limit to what you can do. And I think that's what I'm trying to do, always set new goals.
I know you're going to hate that I do this because the one thing that's harder to do than lining up against J.J. Watt is getting J.J. Watt to talk about the wonderful things that he does. You do a lot. And that included a deadly fire that happened in Texas a few months ago. 4 firefighters were killed, about 14 more injured, and I know you did some amazing things for some of the survivors and their families. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
You know, my dad's a firefighter, my uncle's a firefighter, so it was very close to my heart when that happened. And we lost 4 great men, 3 great men and one great woman. And so I went up to the hospital. Captain Dowling was still in critical condition. I went up there and spent a couple hours with his family. And then Captain Dowling's wife told me that there were 3 units that helped save her husband's life. And so I invited those 3 units out, and we had a nice steak dinner one night. And just a chance for them to have that camaraderie, a chance for them, for me, on behalf of the entire city of Houston, to say thank you to them for their services. Like I've said many times before, I play a game. I come out here and tons of people get to watch me play a game, and those men and women put their lives on the line every single day, and they don't get the credit they deserve. And so that's what I try and do, is use my platform to give them that credit that they deserve.
J.J. Watt, you're a fantastic player, an even better person. Thank you, and have a great season.
Thank you so much. Go Texans.
Lloyd, thank you very much. J.J. Watt, I know from all of us here at Fox Sports, we say thank you for what you did for those families and what you do all the time. You know, we sat down with him yesterday, and we were talking about, you know, when he came out of high school, he called himself a late bloomer. He came out of high school in Wisconsin, was not recruited by the University of Wisconsin, so he started his collegiate career at Central Michigan in the Mid-American Conference. They play very good football in the MAC. There's no two ways about that. But he said his lifelong dream was to play for the Badgers. And so he walked away from a scholarship at Central Michigan. And he just alluded to his father, a firefighter. He didn't grow up with a pile of money in that family. And here he was on a full scholarship, and he said, you know what? I'm going to try and walk on at the University at Wisconsin. And that is exactly what he did, and became an all Big Ten selection and now an all-world performer on the field and off the field.
Yeah, I don't know, and I've been asked this question several times. Was asked this week, if I were to start a franchise, well, who are the first two players I would take? And certainly you start with the quarterback in today's game. But defensively, I think it's a J.J. Watt. And that's quite a lot to say when you're talking about an inside defensive lineman. And what that does, you know, normally you think of pressure coming from the outside and the big pass rush guys. But to have that kind of presence on the inside and going out allows you to do so many more things on the outside. I well deserved as the defensive player of the year last year. And this guy, beyond being a great player, you're right, what a great young man to sit and visit with.
Well, there is just a humbleness about Watt that is so infrequent in our world and society today. I mean, he is as Wisconsin and Midwest tough and humble as it gets.
He said it was interesting, and he loves the fans here in Texas. He said, I just can't go out anymore. And I love the fans, and I love that they have that enthusiasm. He has to go into back doors into the restaurants. He took the defensive line out to play miniature golf. Just picture that in your mind now. A bunch of 6'5", 300-pounders out playing miniature golf. There was no one there. By the time they got done with their game, the parking lot was full of fans. They had to jump over the fence over the 9th hole just to get out of there and get home.
Third down, and that's a nice catch by Cadet. And he has a first down and more all the way to the 30. Of course, Sean Payton wasn't around when Cadet made his mark with the Saints primarily on special teams after winning a roster spot last year.
And this is a fresh look for Sean Payton. Like you said, this is a young man that kind of garnered their attention. We talk about whether it's the running back position, the wide receiver position. When you break down that roster, you're going to carry that 52nd, 53rd man on the roster. Could be a receiver, could be a running back, could be an outside linebacker. You're not going to lock yourself into a certain ratio by position because, as I said earlier, that 50th through 53rd player had better be someone that can help you on special teams, and he's helping himself as a running back right here.
Well, Cadet fumbled twice in their last preseason game, and there was some speculation that because Payton had really never seen him front and center all of last year, and the kind of preseason Kyrie Robinson, the college free agent out of West Texas A&M that he's having, that those two might be duking it out for one spot. And again, that was not an easy catch by Cadet coming out of the backfield. That's a first down to the 17-yard line. He's made two nice catches on this drive.
And you can see even now still they're rolling the people through. That's classic Sean Payton, New Orleans Saints. Rolling people through, and Sean Payton, I alluded to it earlier. He says, I've got to get back into a rhythm. These are important reps for Sean Payton. He's the first one to tell you that I got out of the play calling with him. Noticed it in the first couple games, so he's even stretching himself a little bit here to make sure he's in that regular season rhythm come the opener against Atlanta.
Well, play of this drive for the Saints. In front 24-23 and trying to add to it. Ryan Griffin, the rookie out of Tulane, sets up the screen, and that time it's Robinson, and he dropped it. Third down.
Yeah, that was the classic. He was turning and running before the ball got there. It's anxious. The ball's coming out late like that. A bunch of people breathing down your neck. So you can see right there, the coach said, keep your eye on the ball. Keep your hands together and eye on the ball.
Because that guy's keeping an eye on you.
Non-stop.
.5 to play. On a 3rd down and 8. Good protection. Great throw, and once more there is Tanner for the 2nd time today with a touchdown reception. Out of Midwestern State.
This is a great throw and catch, and I think a broken route. We kind of had 2 people in the same area. Look at him reach up over the top. That ball, if it were a ½ inch lower, it would have gotten knocked down. If it were a ½ inch higher, it wouldn't have been a catch. Great throw and phenomenal catch by Tanner.
Right over the outstretched hand and fingers of DJ Swearinger, the rookie out of South Carolina. Point after is good. So we talked about Andy Tanner. 33 times in his bio. Released, signed, re-signed. And here he is today, fighting for his football life with a pair of touchdown receptions.
Today's game is sponsored by Corona, who invites you to find your beach this football season. And by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Very impressive drive orchestrated by Ryan Griffin, the rookie out of Tulane. 13 plays, 80 yards, and the 2nd touchdown catch for Andy Tanner. 31-23, Saints in front with nearly 11 minutes to play here in Houston. Johnson bobbles in the end zone, and he's going to bring it out. And he's up to the 22. So all's well that ends well for Mr. Johnson. Rick Smith, the general manager of these Houston Texans, back-to-back divisional champions, will join us when we come back. Rick Smith was 36 years old when he was named general manager of these Houston Texans. And now a grizzled veteran as he joins us in our Fox NFL Sunday booth here in Houston on 1st down. Casey Keenum, and his first pass is batted away. Well, Keenum, tell us a little bit about him. Rick, we heard so much about him from Coach Kubiak the other day. I know you guys really like him.
Yeah, he's done a nice job. I mean, he's obviously a college free agent from a year ago, had a great career here in Houston at the University of Houston, and is really understanding what Gary wants in the offense and had a nice preseason so far.
Now, I was asking you in between the commercial break a second ago, we saw Andy Tanner for the Saints. He's caught a couple of touchdown passes, trying to earn a roster spot, and I asked you, are you right now watching every move on some of these guys that might be sitting on that fence?
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, you watch, that he goes and catches a touchdown in the 2nd of the day, and then he's lining up at the safety position on the kickoff, and he's got to go cover those kicks, and that's how he's going to make a football team.
Now, you're cutting down to 75 on Tuesday. You're playing on Thursday, and this is a Sunday game. That's a short time. I can't imagine there's a whole bunch of evaluation at practice between now and that Thursday. So this next Thursday is the last chance you get before you break down to 53. Without giving specific names, how many guys are we really talking about to get down to that 53 that you really have to make a decision?
Well, it's a critical point and a critical time for those players. I mean, you're talking about the balance of about 4 or 5 guys that really have an opportunity to either make or break their opportunities here in the National Football League.
Brian, you and I have talked many times as Keenum takes off running and slides for a first down up to the 33. Brian, you shared with me and a number of times on the air about how tough it is to tell a young man that you haven't made our football team. I'm going to ask you, Rick, on the other side, what joy it must be to tell a young man that he has made the team.
Well, and that is a great thing, and he's right. The toughest day in my whole year is when you have to sit down and talk to these guys. And a lot of times what I try to do is share that this might not be the opportunity, but that doesn't mean that you're not good enough to play in this league and to stay at it, if that's indeed the case.
We talked a lot in the pregame show today, and Brian and I were talking, and I asked Brian the question. I'll ask you the question. Is there a little additional pressure on your franchise this year? You know, you go from, when you take over, you go from 8-8, 8-8, 9-7, now back-to-back divisional championship season. You win a playoff game in each of the last 2 years. There aren't many teams around the NFL that can say that. But now to go beyond that second round, I mean, do you feel any additional pressure?
You know, it's not additional pressure. It's what we expect. It's what we've been building. I mean, we put a game plan in place and a program in place to challenge for championships, and that's what we want to do. We feel like this group has evolved together, and we've gone through some things that are important, I think, to win a championship. And I think we've gotten a group that's ready to do that and poised to do that. We've got to, you know, stay healthy, and there's a lot of things that have to work in our favor, but we feel like we're poised to challenge.
Rick, talk a little bit about that relationship with Gary Kubiak. I was so fortunate to work with Ozzie Newsome in the years, and I always appreciated the fact that Ozzie, his playing background, his coaching background, you coached for a good while in this league. You and Gary were together in Denver. Talk about that give and take and the relationship that you and Gary have in continuing to build this team.
Well, and you're right. The history or the experience of the coaching with him gives us an opportunity to communicate. And so I know what he's looking for, and we've been fortunate enough to be able to explain to our scouts the type of players that fit in the system and the schemes that we're employing. And we've been good about identifying those guys and fortunate to get a few that work. But you're right. That give and take, you know, has to happen. And I think Gary has evolved, and I think he's one of the excellent coaches in our league.
Keenum swings it to the near side, and the catch is made but short of the first down, so the Texans are going to punt it. I'm curious your thoughts on this, because another topic we're talking about earlier. You know, after the 2010 season, you realize we need to upgrade on defense. Is it harder to upgrade a defense or an offense in a short amount of time?
Well, I think that depends on what the other, you know, roster, what the complexion of your roster is. And what we try to do is we always try to add guys that make impact plays, whether if you're talking defensively, guys that can make plays on the ball, that, you know, guys that can turn the football over. If you're talking offensively, obviously you're talking about guys that are explosive with the ball in your hands. So I think it depends on what the complexion of your football team already is.
You know, Rick, when you look at your team right now, and you've got to be strategic, the hardest thing is always, where do I build my depth? And if you knew where the injuries would become, it would, you know, obviously that would make it easy. But as you're going into it right now, is there any part of your team right now that the depth, not the starters, but the depth of where you are at any given position is a concern going into the season?
I wouldn't say necessarily it's a concern for us anywhere across the board. You know, we've got a lot of young players that those 4 or 5 guys that we're talking about that are competing to make our football team. You know, we lost some guys last year. It seemed like the inside linebacker position was a position where we lost some players, and it hurt us late in the season. And so you would think that that's a spot, but I like some of the guys there. I think we've actually got some good depth at that spot as well. So we've got a bunch of young guys that are working to make the team. And critically, that's what's going to happen in this league. As you know, it's a war of attrition. You're going to have injuries, and you're going to have guys that step up and make the most of their opportunities. And hopefully we'll have a group that can do that.
I'm sorry, your biggest off-season signing probably came in one of my old guys, Ed Reed. Slam dunk Hall of Famer when it comes his time. Unbelievable player. But you knew where Ed was in his career. You probably kind of knew this is the way it was going to go in terms of preseason. There's no question in my mind he's going to be there come the opener. Talk a little bit about in the conversations, the thought process of signing this future Hall of Fame safety.
Well, I mean, obviously, just like we just talked about, you are always attempting to add impact players on your football team. And certainly Ed Reed's a guy that can impact the team. And so, you know, from that standpoint, the experience that he adds to our group, you know, we just thought that, you know, an opportunity to grab a guy like that and add him to your football team couldn't do anything but help you.
Now, before I let you get out of here, you know, we can talk about how tough it is to let a guy go. Yes or no question, because I want Mr. Billick to tell you this. Have you ever had a young man come in the room and you tell him you haven't made our team and you got the wrong dude standing there? You ever done that?
I have not.
Tell me. Come on now, be honest.
That's because I've got a guy outside the door that's always telling me.
Well, apparently Brian Billick never had that guy.
No, because you personnel guys, as you know, bodies are flying in there, and they're bringing guys, and they bring in a guy and set him down, and I think it's somebody else.
Right.
And I'm starting to talk, and I'm looking at his face and thinking, this guy should know he's on the bubble. It's just too quizzical. I realize this isn't the guy I think I'm talking to. I'm cutting the wrong guy.
You've got to have the guy outside the door saying, hey, this is who it is next.
I responded brilliantly, because when I realized, I told the guy, you know what? You're a good football player. This is what it feels like to be cut. I don't ever have this conversation with you. Go back to work. You play this football.
You're a smart guy. That's a great recovery.
See, that's how you know, right? that one guy went to BYU and another guy went to Purdue.
Come
right?
on, come
Isn't that
on.
right? No, you know I'm kidding. Hey, we can't thank you enough. Thanks so much for joining. All the best.
Good luck.
All the
Thanks,
best.
Coach. I love your team. You guys are going to be fun to watch this year.
You've done a fabulous job here. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. By the way, we did invite Mickey Loomis, the general manager of the Saints, to join us, and he very politely declined. But we certainly thank Rick for coming up. And I hope all those at BYU know that was
you're going to get letters.
See,
now.
what I wanted to go to was the fact that that Mr. Smith grew up in the Buckeye State. So that's what I ultimately wanted to get to, and just
You know what?
beat you up a little.
I got 140,000 people on my tweets. You're going to get letters from all
It was
140,000.
all in fun. He knows. He knows. All righty, we are down to the final fight. You know, one thing I want to do, Brian, is you compile. I mean,
this is important stuff now.
Every couple of days, as things begin to change, you have been compiling and a power rankings. Now, there are a lot of those out there, but I got to tell you, I'm with you each and every week. We've been together over 5 years now, and you are breaking it down all the time. And here's a long ball that is knocked out of the hands of Salim Hakeem.
Well, there's a lot of power rankings out there, but only one by a Super Bowl winning head coach now.
There you
so
go.
we got to qualify.
That would be all right. So now, let's start. As there's an injured player on the field, I don't want to overlook the fact that Hakeem, and he came down on the ground hard, perhaps had the wind knocked out of him. They're not looking at any area in particular, but we don't know. So we'll take a timeout and back in a moment.
Sponsored by Ford. Only Ford gives you EcoBoost fuel economy and a whole lot more.
(31-23). We have 4 minutes and 38 seconds remaining here in Houston. Second down, and the give is to Cadet as Hakeem was able to get up and walk off the field. The Texans and the Saints join the NFL celebrating USA Football Month and recognizing the youth football leagues, coaches, and youth football players that have signed up to participate in Heads Up Football this season. Heads Up Football, a new program developed by USA Football, supported by the NFL, dedicated to making the game better and safer. Now, any parents of youth football players, ask if your child's coach is Heads Up certified. If they're not, send them to usafootball.com and get them certified. It's good stuff.
So important. See what you hit. Simple. See what you hit.
Put it down and incomplete. All right, Brian. You do your power rankings along with Fox Sports contributor Taylor Jones every week. Let's start in the NFC South.
Yeah, and again, the number you're going to see on the left is where they are in the overall power ranking. You know, the Falcons, obviously coming off the championship game last year. A lot of people look at, boy, New Orleans number 16. Are they too low? Well, obviously defense, that's the question. How much of a difference can they make this year to go with this high-powered offense?
And that one is booted into the end zone. 4:19 to play. We're going to walk through the AFC South and some of the other divisions when we come back. 31-23, and this is the third preseason game for both the Saints and the Houston Texans. Saw the starters, especially on the offensive side for the Texans, more than we saw Drew Brees and Jimmy Graham and the Saints. Case Keenum. And that's Lemon who caught a touchdown pass earlier. First down to the 37. All right, as we promised, the Brian Billick power rankings. And let's go to the AFC South. Texans have won it back-to-back years. They were challenged last year by Indianapolis.
And that's going to be a tough battle between the Texans and Indianapolis. Tennessee still got a long way to go. I don't know at the quarterback position and on defense. And the Jaguars, boy, it was a tough battle at 31 or 32 between them and the Oakland Raiders. Some people lobbying for for the Raiders.
Our game today produced by Bob Stenner, directed by Greg Stopatoni. Our replay producer is Mark Titleman. Technical producer Bob Miller. Technical director Dane Crawford. Our associate director Yvonne Wagner. Our broadcast associate Jordan Wolf. Love to thank our spotter up here in the booth, Scott Snyder. Our statistician supreme, who was lobbying for those Raiders, Mr. Tom Barbary. And we also thank those in the truck, Brian Dwyer and Mike Eldridge. Our entire Fox Sports crew. Brian, you and I are looking forward to our first regular season game in the Motor City at that NFC North. Well, they get going from the get-go the opening weekend. Minnesota, a playoff team a year ago, will visit the Detroit Lions.
And then the next week, we're at Minnesota at Chicago. How about that opportunity for the Minnesota Vikings to open the season on the road in the division? If they could pull that 1-2 punch, boy, they automatically makes them the team to beat in the NFC North.
Well, I want to take a look at how your power rankings shape up, because I think that is as competitive a division as there is top to bottom, 1 through 4, of any in the entire NFL. I mean, really, the AFC North and the NFC North. And when there's some action in those two divisions.
And when you talk about the best divisions, you really talk about how good is the last team right here. The Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers, you got to have them up there. Minnesota, the question for them is Christian Ponder. Chicago is Jay Cutler finally got his soulmate and Mark Trestman as the head coach and play caller. And where are the Detroit Lions? Are they going to revert to the playoff form of 2 years ago or struggle like they did last year?
I think a lot of people are surprised. Maybe I'm the only one. That you have Green Bay that highly rated.
You know what? Aaron Rodgers is still, for my money, the best quarterback in the NFL. I think they did themselves some help, getting some help with Eddie Lacy at running back. Jonathan, the running back, Jonathan from Alabama. From Franklin, excuse me, Jonathan Franklin. This is going to be a team to have to deal with.
We'll take a look at that AFC North when we come back. As they get the snap off prior to the 2-minute warning, which they do. Pretty nifty play call there, and that's Johnson who caught it, fumbles it out of bounds, but that's good enough for a first down to the 29. 1:55 to go.
Ball fumble forward.
Well, every night on Fox Sports 1, join our star-studded team for all the must-see highlights and commentary as they turn sports news upside down. Fox Sports Live tonight, 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 Central, only on Fox Sports 1. Are we going to see you on any kind of regular basis on Fox Sports 1?
You know, a little bit. Obviously, a big presence on FoxSports.com.
Yep.
And then obviously, I still have my commitment to the NFL Network. But yeah, it's been fun. I like what they're doing on Fox Sports 1. A lot of energy, a lot of good commentary coming off that.
All right, before we get out of here, I want to check in on some of the power rankings from some of the other divisions around the NFL as the Texans are in hurry-up mode with 1:40 to go. We'll turn our attention to the, well, you want to talk about a man's division. I mean, when you show up every Sunday, you better bring a helmet, you better bring your pads, and you better bring perhaps some body armor when you show up in the AFC North.
Yeah, interesting. A lot of people wondering how far off the Baltimore Ravens are going to fall. I don't think very far. Cincinnati Bengals should be poised to be the most consistent team in the division. Pittsburgh, I don't know.
20?
Well, that offensive line, the age the defenses begin to show up. Cleveland's doing some good things, but God love them to Cleveland. They're lucky to be at 24.
You look around some of the other divisions, and let's start in the NFC West, where I think we all agree, at least on paper, 2-horse race, right?
Yeah, I never thought these words would come out of my mouth, but maybe the top 2 best teams in the NFC both come out of the NFC West, but San Francisco, obviously with Colin Kaepernick, Russell Wilson in Seattle. St. Louis is the wild card to me. Sam Bradford, it's time. Does he have the supporting cast to move that up? The Arizona Cardinals, I just don't know. And that was a big loss for them to lose their first-round draft pick, Cooper, to a broken leg.
With Bruce Arians taking over as the head coach here for the Cardinals, we'll look at the AFC West. As that's a second down catch. AFC West, is that the weakest division in the NFL?
Well, not when you're talking about the best team in the NFL right now. For most people's money, you're talking about the Denver Broncos at the top. Maybe only second to San Francisco. Kansas City, again, the wild card. Andy Reid. They've got their quarterback in Alex Smith. San Diego and Oakland, I think it's still too much of a transition. Phillip Rivers obviously need to come on with San Diego. And in Oakland, boy, still a lot of holes. Reggie McKenzie, Dennis Allen, I think are doing a good job, but that was just too deep a hole to dig out of.
Let's go to the NFC East. Always competitive.
Well, you got to start with Washington. New York, a 9-7 team. Does that 9-7 get them into the playoffs or not this year like the last two? Dallas Cowboys is like a bad Godfather movie. I feel like Al Pacino. Every time I get out, they pull me back in. You know, I just don't know. Philadelphia, the Chip Kelly effect with Michael Vick. Can he not turn the ball over, stay healthy for the season to move Philadelphia higher than this ranking?
And last but not least, we will have the AFC East.
Do you have to?
You know, I was saying the AFC West was the weakest division in football. And obviously, they have a really good team in Denver. And we know about the AFC East, where you have a good team. I don't know if they're going to be really good. You think they're going to be really good in New England, apparently.
You start with New England. Tom Brady, if he can get there with this group, they ought to slam dunk in the Hall of Fame at the end of the season. Forget the 5-year waiting period. Miami, I'm not buying into all the moves they made. Buffalo, obviously an uphill battle. And, boy, New York. This is going to be like a slow train wreck watching how this thing unfolds. I don't know what you do to start the season now. If you go with Geno Smith and it doesn't work out, can you go back to Sanchez? If you go with Sanchez, how long before you have to pull the trigger and go with Geno Smith? This is just a lot of moving parts in the New York Jets puzzle.
I think that New England team is going to be very interesting to watch with all they have been through during the offseason.
Well, people are saying they need to run the ball better, obviously. They have 90% of their receptions from last year are no longer there.
Right.
Notwithstanding Robert Gronkowski, we don't know how when he's going to show up. But let's remember, they ran the ball pretty good last year. They were 7th league in rushing, so it's not like they weren't running the ball. They're going to need more of it this year to help Brady out.
1:03 to go. This will be a 4th down try. Keenum to keep the drive alive, and it's incomplete. The Saints will take over on downs, and that should pretty much seal the deal. September the 8th, the NFL regular season kicks off. A Fox NFL Sunday doubleheader. The Saints will take on the Falcons. That's a huge Week 1 game. That's a divisional game. So too is Minnesota taking on Detroit. The 49ers and the Packers will face off in America's Game of the Week. Other regional action. Check local listings for the games in your area.
I love those teams that start with divisional games.
Yep.
Boy, you talk about setting the pace. We talked about Minnesota with 2 divisional road games, a chance to make a big impact on it. San Francisco and Green Bay staking the territory early. Who's going to have supremacy in the NFC, at least in the early part? And that Atlanta and these New Orleans Saints, this is going to go a long way in terms of determining just exactly who has the upper hand starting the season. And Tampa Bay and Carolina are going to be teams. Does Cam Newton kind of get pushed behind the triplets last year with Andrew Luck and RG3 and Russell Wilson, and then Colin Kaepernick? I realize he wasn't a rookie, but he's going to have an impact early on.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed it. The next time we will convene for the NFL on Fox, it'll be that regular season opener. 2 weeks from today. That's the first Sunday of the season. For Brian Billick, Laura Oakman, our entire crew, Tom Brenneman saying so long from Houston. Stay tuned for the post-game show. The entire cast of our Fox Football Daily crew is coming up. Have a great Sunday night. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.